Welcome to Pittman and Friends, the curiously probing, sometimes awkward, but always revealing conversations between your host, Anne Arundel County Executive Stuart Pittman, that's me, and whatever brave and willing public servant, community leader, or elected official I can find who has something to say that you should hear. This podcast is provided as a public service of Anne Arundel County, so don't expect me to get all partisan here. This is about the age-old art of government, of, by, and for the people. Welcome. I am here today with my friend, Delegate Andrew Pruski, and we're going to talk about a lot of cool stuff. Welcoming, Andrew.
Good morning. It's great to be with the county executive.
Or should I call you Mr. Delegate, or Andrew's okay, right?
Andrew's fine.
And Stuart's fine too.
Yes.
Good. We go back a little ways. So let's start. I do want to get into some of the things that you're working on in the General Assembly. You're in session right now. It's a 90-day sprint, you could say, or marathon, depending on how you see it.
Sure.
But I want to go back, and I do want to note you're also the chair of our Anne Arundel County Delegation. So right this year, and that is really important to me as the county executive, and we'll get into that, the way that interactions work. But let's talk about you a little first, how you got into this kind of work, your background.
Believe it or not, I started as a community association president. Before I was the president, I was the secretary, membership director, was involved with the county on many issues. And then since then, Anne Arundel County Board of Appeals, school board, 2 terms on the county council, and now serving in the mayor.
I forgot you were on school board.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wow. You do go back. and you, I should know, you also coach, right?
Yes. So currently, I'm coaching rec basketball for Gork throughout the years, probably been about 12, 13 years now with my children. I've always been involved in that organization, just trying to help where we can. And part of it started with that they didn't have enough coaches. So I stepped up to volunteer, and of course you don't want to see any team not have that. So I was glad to help, and I enjoy every minute of it.
So you also have a real job. You work for the Board of Education in Prince George's County, correct?
Yes, that is correct. So I'm an educator. I work as a supervisor there in internal assessment, help support their internal assessment programs. That's my day job.
Did you teach at one point?
I did. So I was a teacher, social studies teacher, high school, and government was the subject that I had. So,
All right.
yeah.
All right. And your wife also is in education, correct?
Yes. Yeah. She currently works for Anne Arundel County Public Schools in the social studies office. She was an assistant principal, though, for many years, different schools. So both of us are educators and proud of that.
All right. And you've got kids?
Yes. Yes. So I have a senior this year at Arundel High School.
Wow.
A sophomore, and then a 5th grader. So
I'll have to hit that graduation then. I'll try.
That's right. That's right. So yeah, it's been busy, but we're excited and a lot going on right now.
Awesome. Okay, so I first met you, of course, when probably the first time I met you. Were you in my barn when I announced that this crazy farm boy from South County was going to be running for county executive?
I do remember that. Yes.
Yeah, and we had all the candidates there,
Sure.
and so we ran in 2018. But you were an incumbent at that point.
Right. Yeah.
You first got elected to the council in.
Yeah, so 2018 is when you ran. 2014, I won my first term on the council, again, prior to that. But yes, I was the only one that returned that year as an incumbent.
And I remember how important that was once I got elected and was county executive and had 7 people, 4 Democrats and 3 Republicans. Right. You're a Democrat, yeah. I'll note. So am I, for those listening who don't know. Most probably don't care, but it was a flip in the council majority, which was something you had been there before under County Executive Hsu with a Republican majority.
Yes.
And you were the only one who knew how things worked when we came in. Yes. So you were absolutely essential. Do you want to tell us anything about how things changed from your first term to your second term?
Sure.
And how you helped to coach me and my staff and the rest of the council?
No, it's a great question. So the first term obviously was difficult. When you're in the minority party, you don't really have a say. But we tried to work with the representatives that were there, and I thought we did a great job with doing that. But as we transitioned with the majority, we were able to get some things done. As you know, the forest conservation law was one of the first things that we passed. That's still set a standard in this state, and I think that we should be proud of that. And also the commitment to education. I mean, you and I worked closely together with our fellow council members, and we really supported our schools. And I think it's made a big difference. You can see with our superintendent and our school board and our schools, you can kind of see that progress. And we've also had new schools being built built. You remember the overcrowding issues that we faced when we came in? I know that, 2 rivers being built in my area. It makes a big difference. It really did. So I think the partnership that you and I had, along with the council members, to move things forward, it's visible. You can kind of see that progress, and I think Anne Arundel County is a better place.
Yeah, that's interesting. I hadn't thought about it. You're one of the few people who really lived through the transition and can sort of compare the two. And I remember how important it was. I didn't understand coming in as a county executive, I don't think. I just interviewed Julie Hummer, and we talked a little about this, the relationships between the council and the county executive, and how you set a tone, and it's so important to have a constructive tone with all 7, with both parties. And Pete Barron came in as the person who was, my staffer working with legislation, and he was on the phone with you practically every day, especially in the beginning. And I had to learn how important this relationship was, because I didn't know coming in. So.
Absolutely. No, I would agree with you. And I've always learned in government, we might not always agree, but we have to work together. The only way you get things done, and this is in the Maryland House of Delegates, this is the county council, this is school board, you have to build those partnerships. You have to work with people. And I also think you need to listen sometimes. I have found as an elected official, a public servant, sometimes just stopping and listening what other people have to say, and then also taking that in and try and work with them, because we have to accomplish things and move forward, and that includes Anne Arundel or the state. So I think it's a valuable lesson. Okay,
so now you're in the State House. You do your job during the non-session months, and then it's 100% really probably during those 90 days. Which do you like better, councilor or General Assembly?
It's different. People ask me that question all the time. When I was one of 7, it's you can get a lot more done, obviously. When you're one of 141 in the House of Delegates, it's a little more difficult. But here's what I will say. At a state level, you have a greater impact. There was a bill that the IAFF, the firefighters union, came to me about, and it was regard to workers' comp. And what happened is that there was a Montgomery County case where there was a firefighter who was essentially blocked from receiving some of his benefits because he had 2 subsequent injuries. And I put in that legislation, I changed that, and I remember the gentleman and his wife coming to the governor's signing ceremony, and he started to cry. And when I saw that and said, when you make a difference in someone's lives, it's not just a piece of legislation. This is actually going to have an impact for people. And I think that's so powerful and important that whatever role we have, whether on the council or state, it's making that difference in someone's life and setting policy. So it's different. I think certainly, county council has different issues sometimes at state, but a lot of them are also the same. I still get calls about the roads being plowed, schools closed.
Right.
And we just try and help people. That's why we're here.
Yeah. I am not surprised that you're thriving in this larger institution. I know it's even more of a team sport there, and everything that you do is only because you got your colleagues to support it. You can't get a bill passed by yourself. And I've watched just you operate in the community during campaign time. You're just sort of like made to be a team player. You're always uplifting somebody else. You're always almost like a cheerleader. So I've noticed that your colleagues are gaining respect for you. Not that they didn't have it, but more and more, which is, I think, why our delegation, the Anne Arundel County delegation, elected you to serve as the chair of the delegation. So what does that role entail?
Yeah, it's a great question. When I first got into the House, obviously we had Heather Bagnall leading us, along with Vice Chair Dana Jones. And I kind of just observed, tried to understand what does the chair of the delegation do. And really the main focus is to be Team Anne Arundel, right? Obviously any piece of legislation that comes forward, but also working with you as the county executive, there's legislation and priorities to try and push those through. Because, you represent obviously Anne Arundel with the council. So as those priorities come forward, we certainly want to do that. But the chair essentially is the voice, but also pushing that legislation forward in terms of policy, giving citations out, obviously, when we get requests, but also just making sure that we're looking out for all of Anne Arundel. I know I represent District 33A, but I will say the responsibility of chair is to look out for all of Anne Arundel. There are issues, certainly, you and I have talked about with transportation, healthcare, making sure, obviously, affordable housing, other things. These are things that we all need to look out it's not just in 33A. And as that chair, I take that responsibility seriously to talk to my fellow delegates and see what those priorities are.
Excellent, excellent. So the delegation meets every Friday morning during session, correct?
Yep.
I believe I'm scheduled to be there this Friday morning.
That's it.
And I remember when I was a candidate and County Executive Hsu was still in office, going and listening to his presentation. Each year the county executive does a presentation on, it's almost like a state of the county and what our priorities are to the whole delegation, Democrats and Republicans all. What is the total number in the delegation of the House?
It's changed, and we also are losing one right now, so I forgot 16, 17, but we have to.
Okay, yeah. So you all sit around the table, and it, it's very formal, like everything is in government, and then you have a table where whoever's presenting comes up, and you hear from all kinds of institutions in the county who come and present. But I remember how carefully I listened to what Steve Hsu was saying to get a sense of what his priorities were and the relationship with the delegation. And so this will be my 7th presentation to the delegation, and I'm not as nervous as I was the first few. Sure. Feeling much more comfortable, and partly because I do have I feel like a good relationship with all of you. Yes. So I'll see you on Friday morning. Let's talk about some of the things that overlapped issues from the being on the council to being in the state, starting with traffic, transportation, and Route 3.
Yes. So if you can recall, I think you and I had this conversation the other day when we had those community meetings with many groups that were upset about the building, the traffic on Route 3, and you and I looked at a moratorium and found out that there has to kind of be an end result of state highway.
A moratorium on new development.
New development, correct.
And it was sort of a strategy to force the hand of the state in some ways
That's
to
right.
actually fix the traffic problem, because we knew for years and years there had been plans that hadn't been implemented. Yeah. And also, common sense, like you don't add more until you fix the problem you've got.
Correct. Yeah, and I think under your leadership, along with, obviously the departments, we obviously got some money to look at the feasibility for adding the lanes on St. Stephen's all the way up to 97. And I think beyond that, one of the things I found, obviously the Key Bridge disaster, the American Legion, the Red Line, there are other priorities in the state, and especially because some of the tolls were lowered, in prior administrations that really hurt us, inflation. Yeah. So we're battling trying to get all this, but I do believe that the state is taking it seriously. Mm-hmm. I know that your transportation department, along with others, have really looked at trying to look at that in Route 2 and 3, in terms of the county.
You got pretty aggressive. I mean, you were doing a petition that residents were signing about Route 3 and the traffic and moving forward on the projects.
Absolutely.
It is a state road, obviously, state highways in charge. And I remember the breakthrough was in that first budget when we knew that we were going to have to address some of the long-standing neglect in the county. And one was transportation. So we did that. It was 0.1% increase on the property tax.
Correct.
Went into this infrastructure fund. And that's the reason we were able to catch up on schools. It's helped with public safety facilities as well, and it's helped with transportation and roads. And so we basically, it was almost like a bribe or maybe a carrot for state highways. And we said, okay, we'll put some money in for the study and for this project if you will raise it in your rankings and actually do it. Yep. And as a result of that, Route 3 has been at the top of the state rankings.
Correct.
And they actually are moving forward.
They are, and we've been working closely with them. There's going to be a public meeting shortly that will invite the public to kind of see where the study is at, what are the future plans. So no, I'm definitely excited that there's movement. And you know how capital projects and other things, they take a while. But having that energy, the financial commitment from the county, and making that commitment, we're going to make a difference. It's going to make some improvements. Yeah,
and for our whole county, it seems like everything moving north and south gets stuck. You've got Route 3, Route 2, and you got 97. Yep. And people jump from one to the other. Route 2 and Route 3 are actually commercial districts and residential, so they're kind of like a combination of a highway and a growth area, and it doesn't work very well like that.
Absolutely.
So we've got projects on all three to open things up.
And I was going to add, and I know that you kind of monitoring this with that New Bay Bridge, there's a possibility of maybe asking for 97 to be expanded as a part of that. I know there's been some discussions around that, and I think, again, the more that we can work together to make those improvements, we can make a difference.
Yeah. They actually have a project that they put in for 97, and then they were ready to take it out, and we said, whoa. How about if we put in $500,000 to help with to keep it on track for the study? And I think that's happening. Fingers crossed. Sometimes we come to the delegation with a bill that is a county bill. It only affects Anne Arundel County. And generally, tell me if I'm wrong, but I think that if the delegation votes to support it, that it's very unlikely that the whole General Assembly wouldn't support it, correct?
That's a general issue. I mean, obviously, there are some issues where other counties will look at, maybe this sets a precedent that they don't like, whatever. But yes, I would agree with you. Generally, if you get the delegation support, the bill has a highly likely chance of passing. But I also know, and I learned in the General Assembly, a lot of people love their bill, and then it goes to committee, and then it moves on, and, something happens. But yes, I would say that's a correct
or it gets
statement.
put in a drawer.
That's right.
Until nobody sees it ever again. Yeah. So one example of that was speed cameras, right? You and I both heard from residents who were looking for ways to slow down traffic on their residential roads often, and in front of schools especially, and said, look, there's one tool in the toolbox that we don't have and you need state authorization for, which is to put a speed camera out there.
Yep. And I was happy to support that when I was on the council. If you can recall, we first started that process to allow them in the county, which prior administrations did not, but absolutely at the state, we want that. And I think it's making a difference. I mean, you talk to the police department, and the feedback I've gotten is that using technology to help and making sure that we have especially safety zones near our schools. I mean, that's an important piece. So yes, I agree. That's a great success.
So, yes, thank you for getting that done. And now we've got a contract, and we've got those moving forward. Let me just, I'll pop through a few issues, and you can jump in.
Yeah.
Crownsville, I hear you were out there a few days ago.
Yes. So I actually been to Crownsville several times, but I never got the full tour. So this weekend, I had a chance to meet with some of your staff at the site. And I think it really gave me a wider view about the history, certainly understanding where the buildings are at in terms of facilities, but also the opportunity. And I'm really excited about the vision, and I certainly want to thank you and the administration and the council for moving forward. I think there's so many good things that could happen. Certainly we also have some challenges, as you know, the infrastructure, the capital budget, but I think if we can all come together with the community, this could really make a difference in Anne Arundel.
Great. And you've seen the draft master plan. The final plan, after all the public comment that we received, should be out soon, and it's going to include sort of price sheets for what things cost.
Sure.
You can do the math and figure out what each and sort of broad timelines for how long things might take to do. And then, of course, the plan is no more than a plan. I will do all I can in my next 2 years to get rolling on it, generate revenue. You made the very wise comment that there's going to have to be revenue coming in off of what goes on there. Do you want to say anything more about that?
Yeah, I mean, I am all for nonprofits. They make a big difference in our community, and certainly some of them are self-sustaining and others are not. So we do have to consider and look at that. I know, and again, this is not something I'm committing to, but there's been discussion, maybe solar that goes on parts of the property. Maybe there's other areas where, people can pay in where they're leasing a building, but we do have to find a way. And of course, I appreciate that we're going after state and federal grants, right? Any kind of money that we can use. I know at one point, you and I talked about this veteran housing. Maybe there's an opportunity there. So I think there's so much potential. I think the process that we're using to involve the community is the way to go, and it's going to be great for the future of Anne Arundel.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you brought that up about, and that is one of the pragmatic things that Andrew Pruski always does. It's like, let's look at this from a business perspective too. Yeah. And yes, and we do understand that these nonprofits, even if they're nonprofits, they've got to pay their way. Everybody's got to come in with their own. We don't have the money to just fix up all these buildings and turn them over to people and say you get free rent. So, state budget.
Yeah.
Is that an issue this year?
Yeah. So one of the things I've learned quickly in the legislature, obviously, is the power of the state budget. We, like the county, have to have a balanced budget. And this year's tough, right? There's about a $3 billion deficit. Our governor came out with a proposal right now. The House is taking the lead in the budget discussions, and obviously then the Senate. I know there's going to be cuts. There's going to be cuts, but there's also going to have to be some revenue pieces. So I think part of it is trying to sort through that. I am not on the Appropriations Committee, but as we get to debates and other things, I'm certainly involved. I know one of the things that I'm paying close attention to is the blueprint. I know that we've committed here in the state to making sure that our schools have quality teachers. We obviously have grants that support some of our neediest children, and that is something I'm going to be monitoring closely. But certainly there is going to be some tough cuts. We're going to have to make those decisions, and that's part of our job, right? That's why we're elected, and we're going to get through it.
Yeah, I wrote one of my weekly letters after hearing from the budget, the governor's staff about the budget and getting the initial. It was only a couple days after it came out, and one of the things that I've said and I believe strongly is that there's going to be a lot of opposition to every single cut. There's going to be a lot of opposition to every revenue increase and or tax reform. It's interesting the way they've done the tax piece of it. There's actually a lot of benefits to the bottom 60% of earners are going to actually have tax cuts. There's going to be a little bit more to pay at the very top of the income, the folks who are going to benefit from what happens at the federal government. So I like to say that maybe they'll be happy that they're putting their money into the state for local services rather than the federal government, because they won't be paying as much there. So, but it's going to be interesting, and I hope that everybody shows some grace to the governor and to each other and understands this is going to be hard. No way around it. So looking forward to that, and obviously watching how that impacts county as well. So,
I agree. And we know with the new administration coming in the federal government, there's a lot of what ifs right now, so we're waiting to see kind of how that plays out and impacts us. I know, and I will say this, that the state of Maryland and our local governments are going to backstop to make sure, we're protecting people and making sure, particularly those that are most in need of support, that we're considering that.
Exactly. And, there are these crazy notions coming out, and even the press has fallen into some of this. I was quoted saying we should welcome immigrants, and we do this welcoming thing. That's not fighting against the federal government doing its job. And the law is clear. The law is very clear on what the role is of the federal government on immigration, what the role is and is not local government, what our police department does, what our police department policies are, and they think we're playing politics when actually I'm just desperately trying to abide by the damn law.
Sure.
I mean, let's actually abide by the law. And there are people who are trying to encourage us to break the law to deport people who are legally have a right to be here. That's illegal. So it's a crazy time, and I know that we'll all kind of, most people in government really just want to try to play by the rules and change the rules if they think that the rules are wrong, which is your job. But man, I get frustrated by that. Some of that craziness. How about bills that you are bringing this year? You've mentioned a couple of consumer protection things.
Yeah, so one of the things I learned on my committee is you get assigned, subcommittees, and obviously you take on issues that you think are important. Yesterday I had 2 bill hearings. One of them was related to a bill that passed the House last year, but no action was taken.
I know, because I was trying to reach you on the phone all day, and you said, "Oh, he's still in a hearing. He's still in a hearing."
Yes. I had. It was a long day. We had many bills, but the premise of the bill is really automatic renewals. So I don't know if you've ever had a subscription to a music or some type of Netflix or some other type of business where you have that automatic renewal. And essentially, what it is to standardize the rules, the framework regarding that. So, for instance, I know I had a constituent say this to me. You ordered something on their phone, but then you go and try and cancel it on your phone, you can't do it.
It makes it so hard for you. Yeah.
Or it's 3 or 4 links to get to the cancellation, or you can only call to cancel, or you have to go into the business. So the framework that I'm attempted to pass, and again, it passed the House last year, is to put some guidelines on that for those businesses. Basically say, one-click cancel, there's a number to call, trying to make it easy for a consumer. And I'm really pushing that because I've had so many people reach out to me and say, that's a great idea, and that's happened to me. So that's one bill. The other one...
That is great. And, it is so important that, people say, you're pro-business or you're anti-business. And actually, it is pro-business to have rules that everybody follows that are consistent. You can make money within the rules. It's
Absolutely.
But you don't have to, mess with people in the process. So.
Yeah, no, and that was one bill. The second bill that I had, and I don't know if you know this, whenever you buy a video game, digital book, I don't know if you're aware of this, technically it could be taken away. And I had someone explain to me, well, can you give me an example of that? Well, someone actually bought a video game, the license was removed by the manufacturer, and they lost it, and they weren't aware of that. So one of the things that we're trying to do is actually disclose to the consumer that when you buy that digital item, you don't necessarily own it for a lifetime. And I think that's, while it seems minor to people, we need to educate people on that. Those kind of purchases, if you're not buying a hard disk or other things, you don't technically own it for a lifetime because they have issues. So that is something that we're also looking at.
Even the hard disks, they make them so they don't work in the future, so they're useless.
That is true.
So, all right. Well, and then I guess the last thing is when the county has legislation. Sometimes, there's one this year, for instance, managed aquifer recharge, and I want to thank you for. Being willing to take whatever issue it is. Some of them are really little technical things that one of our government agencies says, oh no, we got to fix this law. And it's not something that most people are thinking about, but you are there to serve the interests of those county agencies, those institutions, to make them work better by tweaking a law here and a law there. So I know we've got a couple of those this year, so thank you for doing those. We don't even need to get into the details of them.
No, absolutely. And as I said to you earlier, I look as the responsibility of chair to look out for Anne Arundel County. We have to look at ways, and there may be multiple issues, and you mentioned one of them. So,
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. I know you have to get, we're on a tight timeline here, even in this podcast, for you to get back across the street and get back to your hearings and your work. And I will see you on Friday morning. The public should know that they're welcome at your delegation meetings, correct?
Yes. Yeah, they're virtual, 8:30 every Friday. The link is on the Maryland General Assembly website. If you look under delegations, it's accessible. And we're hoping next year we'll actually be in person. I don't know if you know, with the DLS building being built, there was some technical issues about space.
Oh, so they're virtual. Okay, I'd forgotten that. Okay.
Yeah, so it is virtual, but we're open and welcome to the public. We encourage people to attend to hear, the issues that are facing Anne Arundel County.
They're interesting. Yeah, you see what's on the agenda, and they are interesting. Well, thank you so much, and you can get back to work. And if you're listening and you want to know who our guest is going to be next week, and you like to get informed about what our schedule is, click on that subscribe button, and you'll get emails that will keep you up to date. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. Take care.